this way before. It must be you and I. It's got me thinking about us more. It's these bright lights that put me in a daze, and I can't stop but think about the way that you move around up and down on that stage. It's your future vibes. Bright lights, they put me in a daze, and I can't stop but think about the way that you move around up and down on that stage. It's your future vibes. Bright lights, they put me in a daze, and I can't stop but think about the way that you move around up and down on that stage. It's your future vibes.
Well, hello there, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful day. Apparently, my shirt is chroma keyed out, so I'm invisible today. What the hell is going on? This is what I get for wearing a blue shirt. So now I'm just going to be a talking head. And that's just what we're going to go with it. We're just going to go with that today. I apologize. I should have planned this out better. Sorry. I failed you all. Okay, so as floating head PieRatKing, we are going to talk about the one thing that I know you all are so interested in, and that is sports. Yes, calm down, calm down. I know y'all are excited because all of y'all are as engaged in sports as I am. Y'all watch, all the sports ball all the time. I mean, I do, but I know most of y'all don't. But this kind of this business, the business of sports, the business that surrounds the sports entertainment industry, actually leaks over to a lot of other aspects. But it's just one of the very few that I know a lot about. Get out of here, ducks. It's one of the few that I know a lot about, that I've done a lot of research into. That isn't video games, and I would like to get in more in depth about the industry of the video game industry in the future. Hopefully I can do some more research on that, but this is something like a lot of y'all don't know. Before I started streaming, I used to kind of do a little bit of sports stuff on the side, just personal stuff, just writing about sports, and I almost considered going into trying to get onto sports radio or into sports journalism, because I've loved sports since I was a little kid. I played sports, I've watched sports, I do all the sports. There's really very, very little sports that I don't care for, because I just enjoy 90% of all sports out there. I enjoy the competition. I enjoy the struggle and the peak physical aspect that most sports need to be successful. Hold on, Steam is being stupid and wanting to update. Thanks, Steam. You're a bunch of jerks. Thanks. Just automatically update whenever the hell you feel like it. So we're going to touch base on some kind of controversial subjects in the sports world. Dealing with college sports on the collegiate level. I know your Raptors won last night, and good on them. They beat the Golden State Warriors, who I'm not a fan of, so it didn't hurt my feelings. But we're going to talk about college sports in the sense. We're going to go into my personal feelings on whether the players should get some sort of compensation, why college coaches get paid so damn much, and why, and we're going to touch on that. We're going to touch on the differences between women's sports and men's sports, and a lot of the monetary side of that, because there was a big hubbub brought up from this week, because the United States national women's team in soccer, who is going to probably win the Women's World Cup, trounced Thailand's team 13-0. We're also going to hopefully touch on to another subject. We'll see if we get there. I'm planning only about 2 hours, maybe 3 hours today, so I hope y'all are, at least semi-interested in the conversation and willing to put in your own opinions, because I think this is something that needs to be fleshed out. I think a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions about the sports industry in general. A lot of people have a lot of strong feelings, especially when it comes to their home sports teams. I know living in Europe for a while, like, people would get into fights over, their soccer team, or football team, sorry. And I think it's really interesting to me, the way that the U.S. compares to everybody else when it comes to sports, and especially when it comes to professional sports or competing on an international level, because it's something we take pride in. I mean, most people from most countries will root for their country team, no matter if they actually like the sport or not, just because it's their country's team. Me personally, I when it comes to soccer, I'm going to keep saying soccer because I'm American. I root for the German team and the American teams, and that's about it. Because the Germany is where I actually started to enjoy soccer, and the U.S. is my home, so I will always root for the American teams, even if they suck. So, what I first wanted to talk about as we segue. I wanted to talk about college sports. I think a month or two ago, I saw an article or a video talking about why the highest paid public employee, so somebody employed by the state, was a athletic coach. Or it wasn't why, it was just basically, it was a question as to why are these coaches getting paid so much? They're getting paid more than any other public employee, any other public servant in the entire, state. They're making a ton of money. And when you first look at it, you're like, okay, why are coaches? Why is there a coach here? I'm going to bring up this. This is the 2018, I think, college football pay, like the top 20 college football paid or salaries. Here we go. Hold on. Where is my thing? All right. So this is basically the top 50. No, it's all the coaches' salaries in the entire country that are publicly known. So Nick Saban he's the coach for University of Alabama football team, makes $8.3 million a year. That's a lot of money. Yeah, that's a lot of money. And he is technically a public employee. Because since Alabama is a public school, the school is owned by the state of Alabama. He is a public employee making $8.3 million. And I know, all of y'all are going to be like, wow. Like, nobody else is making that kind of money in this that works for the state. Nobody else in this, okay, other than, like, other college coaches. So, like, Texas A&M, which is the university I like, and have liked for a long time, their head coach is making $7.5 million a year. I think this is the assistant pay. So all of their assistant coaches, which is roughly about 10 to 15 other people, for Saban are making 6.1, and Jimbo's making 6.7. Like that's not him, but that's his assistants. So that's a ton of money going into one person's bank account for being a coach of a sport. And the sport only lasts, 4 to 5 months, depending on how long their individual season is, depending on how long, whether they make the playoffs, whether they make it to the championship games, whether they make it to the bowl games, et cetera, et cetera. These coaches make a lot of money. So a lot of people misconstrue this, and they think that's coming out of the taxpayers' money. And they're thinking, wow, why are taxpayers paying this guy $8.3 million to play to coach a team, to play a sport that does nothing but entertain us? It's not, does no real good for the society, does no real good, for the kids' future who are in college. And I have to say that they're not paid by the taxpayer. And I think a lot of people don't understand this. A lot of people... Well, yeah, it does, Mina. I agree. But their pay is not from tax money. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people look at it and they're like, wow, that's a lot of money for taxpayers to be paying. But it's not from the taxpayers. Because if you look at the actual income of Alabama football made... Where is it? Hold on, I had it earlier. Alabama football made $174.3 million. $174.3 million just in ticket sales, in merchandise, in TV deals. Like, that's the money that the University of Alabama got from their football program. And after they paid the coaches, after they paid for the facility, after they paid for like anything related with that sport, they came out with I think it was right here. Hold on. $15.6 million in just net profit. That's a freaking ton of money that extra, that's extra money. That's extra money that the college made after it paid everybody, their salaries, after they paid everybody, paid for the electricity bills, after they paid for the upkeep on the stadiums and everything like that. And that's just from one sport. One sport. Mind you, that $15.6 million goes back into the university. It goes into other departments. It goes especially in other sports. It goes into Alabama's softball team. It goes into Alabama's soccer team, their baseball team, their basketball team, which don't fare as well on the national level. Their baseball team's okay, but like their basketball teams, they're never in March. Their other sports are not as highly competitive in the national scheme of it, but that money goes back into those sports. It goes back into the university for education programs. It's not just going and sitting in a bank and gaining money. No, it is, Mina, I agree. It's extremely good business, and this is what makes universities on this level, in Division One.
Hang out, hurry up! You better take a guess.
Thank you for the sparks. This is what makes doing these athletic programs extremely reasonable for the colleges to do. So investing into their sports program will eventually bring them more money, and to use for other programs. With Title IX, they have to share all their income with the other sports programs, whether it's male or female sports programs. So all their money gets thrown into this big giant bank account and distributed amongst each other. So when you see these high salaries for coaches, when you see these extraordinary budgets that these athletic programs have, and especially if they're a successful sport, especially like football in Texas, football in Alabama, baseball in Texas as well, because there's some really good baseball teams out of Texas, basketball in Kentucky, basketball up Northeast. When you have these really successful, like the Brewers are Milwaukee and they're MLB. And I'm actually going to talk a little bit about baseball on the professional level here in a bit. When you look at these really super successful sports programs for these universities, you need to understand that their success is the overall university success, and it's the overall other athletic department success, and that by paying a good coach what he is worth, because if Alabama wasn't paying Saban $8.3 million a year, somebody else would be. No, it's okay, Ducks. Somebody else would be paying this man this kind of money. I'm pretty sure Saban will never go to the professional level again. He had his time and it didn't work out well. But he's just really successful on the college level. He's really good at recruiting new kids. He's really good at playing other college level teams, and that he deserves his paycheck. Same thing I think with Jimbo Fisher, who's the coach of Texas A&M. There are some coaches on this list that I'm like, wow, y'all paid him way too much, but that's the university's prerogative. I mean, like, okay, here we go. University of Texas, Tom Herman makes $5.5 million a year. But that college also brought in $215 million in 2017. So their profits were freaking great the year, for that year. So, I mean, it's just like, when we see these extraordinary, these giant salaries for these coaches, if they're doing something positive for the university, whether it's the money that they bring in through their sports program, through having good sports programs, it's overall better for the university. That's why you see a lot of the Division II schools, Texas State, Northern Arizona University, like they don't have extremely good or extremely profitable athletics departments, but they still get by. So that's just my take on the why our highest, and I think a lot of people outside of the United States don't understand. They don't understand the money that is thrown around at college sports to watch a bunch of, young men and women play a sport just to get just to get their degree. Yeah, I think it's pretty different too. I mean, like, I don't know if collegiate sports are on the same level as they are here in the United States. I don't think that, like, you go to other countries, you go to Germany, you go to the UK, their college sports teams are not bringing in the kind of money that it is here. And a lot of that has to do with the athletic talent that is in the United States. And I'll bring this point up a lot. We have 330 million, I think last census, 330 million people in this country. We're like, I think third largest country in population, third or fourth largest country in the population. So we're going to have a larger pool of athletic talent. I might just freaking, we're just going to have a larger pool to draw from for athletic talent, so that we're just going to have a lot more really talented kids from the United States who are going to go to college, play sports, get scholarships for sports, and go through college that way. Most of them won't even see a professional sporting career. Most of them are just gonna their sports career ends at the end of college. Shoot, most of us, our sports career ended at the end of freaking high school. So I mean, at least they made it to college off that, So when I talk to people from outside the United States, and I talk to them about, when they see these numbers, and they ask, why are our college coaches making this much money? Like, it's because of the money that they bring in. I mean, it's not because, we're frivolously spending taxpayer money on that. We're frivolously spending taxpayer money on other stuff, but it's because they're making a lot of money for their university. They're making a lot of money for their, prospective states in general. Now, when it comes to that college talent, I've gone back and forth on a thought that college athletes should be paid, because of the fact that college sports do make so much money. They make so much money. They make so much ad revenue. They sell jerseys. They sell, tickets. They sell beer. They sell nachos. They sell freaking hot dogs. They do all this stuff, and because of the way that the NCAA, okay, hurry back, go grab that food. Because they of the NCAA rules, they're not allowed to have a job outside of work. They're not allowed to have a job. They're not allowed to, make money any way other than, what is provided to them by the college. So the college provides their housing. The college provides their food, stipend. And they don't get paid. So they can't work at the same time as they're doing this. Plus, if you've ever seen what these college athletes have to go through and how much training they are doing, most of them don't even have time to freaking go and have a job on the side. They really don't. I know I'm floating today, and it's really bothering me. I'm probably gonna take off my my chroma key because it's really bothering me. Let's see, can I do that? Which is, y'all are going to see my green screen in the background, and it's going to bother the hell out of me, but it's okay. It's okay. It's better than floating me. This is not a horror stream. Whoa, hey. Let's turn this off. There we go. There we go. There's my green screen in the back. Y'all can see it now. Breaking the illusion, the immersion. Ouch, buttsicle. Ouch. So, yeah. they don't have this time. They don't have the time to go have a job. They can't have a job. They can't make money. So they're just basically living on what the university is providing them. Even though the universities and the television companies that are hosting they're making money off these kids for a college education. So and again, I've gone back and forth. They're getting a lot of them are getting full rides to school, but a lot of them also, when that full, if they get injured, they can lose that full ride. They can lose that. They can lose their scholarship if they get hurt to a point where they can't play anymore. So, yeah, they're getting their school paid for, but for how long? And I understand, school in the United States is expensive. That's a whole nother topic that I will get into at a different time. But I honestly, I have a hard time looking at these kids who play these sports, who make this money for these universities, who make this money, for these television companies, because television companies make money off ads shown during sporting events, who aren't getting paid at all. And they risk their health, they risk their livelihood, they risk, everything. And I'm specifically focusing more on American football than anything else, because it's one of the more aggressive forms. But they risk a lot for a college education that's only guaranteed to them as long as they're able to play. And I think, honestly, I think they should get a salary. Give them a yearly salary. It doesn't have to be, $50,000 a year. It doesn't have to be, the $100,000 a year. And I understand the drawbacks from that, because a lot of the issues with that is that there's not every college out there can afford to pay 70, 80 kids, $50,000 a year. I understand that. And that some colleges are going to, offer, hey, you're a 5-star prospect out of, this high school that, you have the pedigree. Your dad was a professional athlete. Your mom was a professional athlete, and you have that pedigree. And believe me, that does account for a lot of your genetic makeup does help you when it comes to that. I wouldn't have a problem with something less than minimum wage, honestly. I mean, like I said, 20,000, 25,000 a year, like something that they can either put into savings or be able to, pay for a date. No, I don't think it is, Mina, but I'm just saying. Like, when I think of, what's reasonable and, how much I've made in the past, So, something, it could be even, 10,000 a year, 15,000, 5,000, something. Oh, no. I mean, you wouldn't be able to live in Toronto, though, Mina. That's for sure. I've seen the prices of houses out there. But so I feel that they need to be compensated somehow, and I understand the reasoning behind it is that they don't want universities like the University of Alabama or the University of Texas or the University of Southern California who make all this money, who have all this extra, the $15-16 million in profit, just to be like, oh well, now we can just go and pay these kids for, to get them to come to our school. Oh, Alabama's offering you, $65,000 a year to come play for them. We'll offer you 70. That's what it could lead to. But I guess, maybe the answer to that is to make a maximum salary, or just have a straight salary across the board. Whether you're a Division I school or a Division III school, depending on which division you are, here's what you got to pay, or here's the most you can, this is all you pay. maybe that's the answer. But I've been having a hard time agreeing that they shouldn't be making any money at all. Just because it is a super lucrative business, because they are basically doing it for a college education, and honestly, most of them, they don't have the time to do any other college degree other than maybe a really low end degree, one that doesn't take a lot of time out of their training and stuff like that. Well, maybe that's the answer. I don't know the answer. I just know something needs to change on that aspect of it, and especially when you look at how much money these colleges are making off these kids. Plus, maybe then it'll bring back NCAA football to the consoles, because I freaking missed that game. I'm not gonna lie. I have the last NCAA football game still in my room, somewhere hiding in here, and I have not gotten rid of it because the last one they made, but that was mostly because the kids started standing up to the NCAA and saying, look, y'all are making money off of our likeness. You're making, it doesn't have our name, but you're making money off of us. So, I mean, but what are y'all's thoughts? What are your thoughts on that? Like, should college athletes be paid? Should they just accept that, hey, you're getting a free education? I mean, because college degrees don't mean what they used to. They really don't. I agree, it is a job. Especially with the way that a lot of these kids treat it. They treat it like a job. They train every day. They train, 6 days a week. They watch their food intake. They're in the gym. They're always trying to get, better at their sport in hopes that maybe they'll land a lucrative professional career. And they like I said, they risk their bodies. They risk their health, their overall health. Thank you, Mina. I agree, Mina. I agree that they work more than some other employees. Believe me, I've had some of those employees work for me, and... Are you saying you don't work, Mina? No. I don't work as hard as them. You work on your butt. I mean... We all have our talents, and we're all good at certain things, and if we can find a career that helps us with that, maybe that's the path, the way to go. I yell in microphones all the time, especially this microphone right here, where I yell at you guys, tell y'all to stop being mean to me. So, I don't know. I like to use my parents a lot. In this kind of discussion, I've talked with my dad about it, in the past. I was actually talking with my brother about some of this stuff right before the stream, because I was just discussing. I tell him every Friday like what I'm going to be discussing, and then we kind of talk with each other, because we agree on certain things and we disagree on certain things, and we like to mix and match. So. And we like to have conversations like that, because that's just how I am. That's why I started this freaking show, was so I can have conversations with you people and, tell y'all what's going on in my head. All right, what else? What else are we going to talk about? Oh, there we go. So, where is a good tweet from here? So I don't know if any of y'all have been paying... Well, yeah, that's what I was trying to work to. I was just trying to find what I was looking for on here. So, if y'all haven't been paying attention to the Women's World Cup, I pay attention to both World Cups. I like both women's and men's. I root for the German men's team and the American men's team, and I also root for the American women's team. Because, I'm American, so why wouldn't I root for USA? Why wouldn't I go around my house screaming, USA, USA? That's what we do, right? That's what all Americans do. We run around, screaming, America, and drinking our cheap beer, and shooting our guns in the air, and talk about how we're the best. around. No? Kissing our flag, right? Yeah, I mean, that's what I do. Every night I salute my flag, and then I kiss it and coddle it, and, you know. And I say, damn, I'm glad to be an American. And Gigs.
Your booty is mine.
Thank you for the host, Gigs. Your booty is mine. But anyways, so if y'all haven't been paying attention to the Women's World Cup, the United States women's team, in their first competition in this World Cup, went out and dropped 13 goals on Thailand. 13 goals, setting a world record, or a record. No other women's team has dropped 13 goals. I mean, soccer, 10, 5 is a freaking high score. 5 is a high score in soccer. I'm just letting you know. 5, when you get 5 goals in the game, you're like, damn, that was a freaking lot of goals. Somebody should fire that goalie. But 13 goals. And we've seen a little bit of backlash of people saying that, the women's team shouldn't have been racking up the score. They should have, they should have taken pity on them. Thailand is not a formidable soccer country. I'm pretty sure they barely got into the Women's World Cup this year. They were definitely but they got in. Yeah, they got in. I'm not disparaging them. You get into this level, the group stage of the World Cup competition. These are teams that are better than other teams in their region. Not all of them are going to be able to compete on the same level as, the European teams or the American teams. I said American teams in general because North and South America usually have really good soccer teams. I don't know about Canada. Canada's been one of those teams that have been, iffy. I mean, like the Canadian soccer team, they have to compete with the likes of, Mexico and Costa Rica and the United States and, all the other North American countries. So, I mean, I wouldn't expect a hockey, country to fare as well in soccer. But that's just me. So to me, this is unsurprising. Honestly, the American women's team has been the best team. They've been the one team that every other country has wanted to attack. They've been the one team in the world for as long as I can remember that has been consistently in the top 4 teams in the entire world in soccer. And a lot of this has to do with the large pool of athletes that you can draw from in the U.S. And one of the reasons why the women's soccer team is better than the men's soccer team in that aspect of how good they are compared to their peers in the world has to do a lot with the way the United States looks at sports. If you're an American kid, you really grow up playing baseball, football, and basketball. Soccer is like... you do if you're not good at any of the other sports, but you have a little bit of athletic talent. So the Americans in general just don't focus on soccer for the male sport aspect of it. But on the female side of it, it is one of the go-to sports. Between soccer, volleyball, and basketball, those are like the 3 major female team sports in the U.S. And you can see this in the college and the high school levels. They're just that's where a lot of the females who play sports, that's where they go. They go and they play soccer. They go and they play, softball. I almost forgot. God forbid I forget softball. Softball is up there with soccer. Soccer and volleyball. So you have this giant pool of athletes, and when they focus on certain sports, they get really good at those certain sports, and then they compete extraordinarily in those sports across the world. There are very few sports in the entire world that the United States is not top 10. I think marathon running, even then, I think some of the top 10 marathon runners are American. Most of them are Kenyan because they train in the mountains in Kenya. That, like, this is legit. I'm not making any stereotypical thoughts. The reason why you have so many good Kenyan runners and Ethiopian runners is because they run in the mountains in those countries. I don't know if Ethiopia, but definitely Kenya, and they run in the mountains of Kenya, and that's where they do a lot of their training. And because they're training at such a high altitude, when they come and do competitions at sea level or a little bit above sea level, it actually helps them be better. When it comes to distance running, this is a very important thing. Places like Flagstaff, Arizona, are a focus point for a lot of marathon runners. They go and they run up there. They try, they run the distance up there because it's at a mile above sea level. It gives them a competitive advantage when they go and they race and they run at lower sea levels, or at closer to sea level. So there are very few sports around the world that the United States isn't top 5, top 10. It's just a fact, and a lot of that, again, has to do with our talent pool. We have a huge pool of to grab talent from. We have kids who go and play sports. In other countries like Canada, where the population is a lot smaller, they really, more people make more athletes. Look at China. I was joking when Yao Ming came to the United States and to play basketball for the Houston Rockets. Everybody was like, "Man, that's the tallest Chinese guy I've ever seen in my life." But when you look into it, China actually has a large population of really tall people. Because there's 1.6 billion people living in the country, you're going to have a large population of people that are taller. We're just going to have a larger population to draw athletes from. That's why their Olympic team, other than when they cheat and put younger girls into the gymnastics team, is usually up there competing. That's why their swimmers are usually up there competing. They compete on all the sports levels. Same thing with Russia. Because they have this giant pool to grab athletes from. And so when you're from a smaller country, when you're from a less dense country with less people from there, your athletes tend to focus more on one sport over another. Canada is hockey. We all know this. They've had one of the best hockey teams in both women's and men for generations. Same with Russia. Same with like Sweden. Russia's always had a really good hockey team. So, and then you go down to like Central America. Most of their kids play soccer growing up. So they focus on soccer, and that's what all their kids want to do. They just want to be soccer players. Again, the United States, we just have a broadness of different sports that we can play and learn, and the athletes galore. I mean, the United States has been so good at sports, they even freaking canceled softball in the Olympics because we just dominated way too damn much. Yeah, and we do have different weather zones. We have different, we have different places to train. We have different, it's just, if you want to be a top class athlete in whatever sport, come to the United States. I will say, though, our men's soccer program is not where it needs to be. So go to Europe for soccer, but everything else come here. So how this translates is, so I'm getting off a little bit off topic. So with this giant trouncing of another World Cup qualifying team, there was a lot of fervor around why the women's team athletes don't make as much as the men's athlete in soccer. And this is an argument that's come up from time to time over the past decade or so, that female athletes aren't making as much money, they're not getting paid as much as male athletes, especially when it comes to team sports like soccer, basketball, goes at all. The female athletes don't make as much as the male athletes. And when we look at that, when I looked at it originally, I was wondering why. Because the women's soccer team, I mean, in athletic sports, and that's what I'm going to get into, Mina. When it comes to athletic sports, when it comes to the entertainment side of it, when it comes to entertainment in general, males tend to get paid more than females. But a lot of this has to do with something I brought up with the college sports, which is the money that's coming in. Because you have money coming into a business, you can only put it out so much, and this is where a lot of the problems with this push for the women's soccer team to get paid more. Don't get me wrong, I respect to hell this team. I've loved watching the U.S. women's national team. I think they're great athletes. They can probably kick my ass any day of the week on the pitch. And I would never try to go against them and try to score goals on them because I know I'd get my butt kicked. But the amount of money that they bring into the seats, which probably isn't fair, because I think out of all the female sports, the women's soccer team is more enjoyable to watch. Is actually enjoyable to watch. They don't bring in the amount of money off the streets. They don't bring in the viewers. They don't bring in the people in the seats. They don't sell as much merchandise. And this is just a cultural problem. This might be just more of a cultural problem than a actual financial problem. Well, and I see that, Mina, but I don't think that it's that women are currently that women are considered less good. It's more about the entertainment aspect of it. There's a reason why, baseball. Okay, here's an example with baseball, American baseball. Baseball has changed a lot of their rules over the past 5 years. Anthropologically, I agree. Anthropologically is a word. So with baseball, over the past 5 to 10 years, they've tried to adjust their game to make it more entertaining, to retain viewers, to retain people going to this watch the games, because they've seen their numbers dwindle as football has gotten even more. American football has gotten even more and more successful. They've started to see it affect their numbers. Same thing with basketball. They've adjusted the way that they referee games, because to them and their mindset, and partially in our mindset as viewers, as sports watchers, higher scores means it's more entertaining. That football started doing the same thing. They started protecting the quarterback more, to make it to where they were actually scoring more often and at a higher pace. At a higher pace and higher numbers. Baseball started doing the same thing, where they shortened the game a bit, and they tried to adjust things. Well, along with the fact that sports science has generally gotten more and more in depth, to help, especially with baseball, where it's a lot more about technique, and as much as it is about athletic ability, it's a lot more about technique. So they can invest more into teaching these guys how to properly hit the ball, to how to properly throw the ball, where and do that kind of aspect, to ensure higher scores. Basketball has made it a lot more offensively friendly to ensure that you're getting the consistent 115 score games. Soccer is one of the few sports that continues to lag behind. Even hockey has changed over the past 20 years to where they're getting higher scored games. Soccer is just one of the few sports that you don't consistently have anything, other than a draw or one goal difference. to me, I don't care so much about that because I like being somebody who played defense, somebody who's always enjoyed defense in football. Points don't matter as much as technique and ability to me, and the especially when it comes to football, the defensive side of it. I'd rather watch defensive plays every day of the week, especially when it's good defense in football. I'd rather watch well-managed soccer games where the guys on the pitch are actually forcing each other into a draw. Yes, I know ties are like kissing your sister, as the statement goes. And a lot of that affects the way that women's sports are viewed, because women's sports, when you watch women's basketball, you don't have the slam dunks, you don't have the high scoring games. You have a more technique and mechanical and more technical side of the sport. You have them doing more layups. They're doing more, high percentage shots. It's a lot more sport and a lot less entertainment, which does, I hate to say it, doesn't fill the seats. It doesn't sell the ad revenue. It doesn't sell the merchandise, because it is more sport and less entertainment. There's a reason why weightlifting is not a highly, lucrative sport, because that's all about technique and, the technical aspect of it. Now, when it comes to sports like that's a reason why X Games shot up so drastically during the 90s. You had skateboarders who in the 70s, skateboarding was very technical. It was very about how you position your body and how you took turns and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, in the 80s and 90s, you start having kids do kick flips and going on vert ramps and stuff like that. And that changed that sport to be more entertaining, and which brought more viewers and which brought more money. And that's why we now have yearly X Games, if not like 3 times a year. There's big giant extreme games, competitions, because we as humans want to see something that excites us to spend. We want to spend money on stuff that excites us. We do. We're kind of still bloodlusty. We want that blood sport. We want to see somebody fail miserably and get hurt. Whether we actually want to admit to that is a completely different story. But we want that excitement. We want that moment of a game or of a match where you're on the edge of your seat and you're, waiting, and then all of a sudden the guy catches it and freaking runs 20 yards down the field, and you're hoping that he just gets across the goal line, and so you jump up and you start screaming. That's what we want from our entertainment. That's what we want to spend our money on. And I hate to say it, but you don't get those kind of moments a lot of times in female sports. So it doesn't drive money into the sport, so when you don't have money coming in, when you don't have the seats filled, when you're not, selling millions of dollars in merchandise, when you're not selling, you have a couple 100,000 people watching you every match, or less, especially in like the smaller, like the women's soccer league, you have maybe a couple thousand people watching you every match. You don't have the money to pay these people what you think they're worth. And I don't think it's that we don't think that women athletes are worth much, but the money that is funding them can't cover it, So it's like, I'm not telling women or female athletes to change what they're doing, because that's what they're doing, If they can find If somebody can find a way to make the women's sports more entertaining, maybe this is it. Maybe it is the United States women's team going over there and destroying Thailand. Yes, they're the bad guy. They ran up the score. But, you know, there's an old saying in American football, if you can't stop me, I'm just going to keep scoring on you. Like, that's a lot of people are starting to take that mantra of running up the score as being a dick, but at the same time, it's like, if you want to, if you don't want me scoring on you this much, stop me. Find a way to stop me. I don't know. I'm definitely interested. Me personally, I'm interested in the World Cup. I always watch it. I like the international games. I like watching the Olympics, both winter and summer. I don't really focus on whether it's women's sport or men's sports. Although I will say women's volleyball is a little bit more entertaining to watch than the men's beach. It feels like training. So I think a lot of the yelling and screaming right now about women's pay in sports is just it's hard for me to get back. What about and women's volleyball? I love women's volleyball. I like women's volleyball in the team side of it, not beach volleyball. I'm not a big beach volleyball fan. Because I just don't like sand. It gets everywhere. And looking at sand makes me it bothers me. It makes me feel like I have sand between my toes, and that's uncomfortable. I enjoy watching curling. Okay, this is how much of a freaking sports junkie I am. I watch curling because I find curling entertaining. I still don't think that dressage is a sport. I don't care what Formal says. It's not a sport. It's show ponies. That's all it is. Show ponies. I will watch poker. I find poker very entertaining. I play poker, so I like to watch I also like to watch people play poker because I find it's hard for me to decide whether that's a sport or not. Because I can see it. Because I also consider esports a sport. And I think that a lot of people misjudge esports and say, "Oh, what's so hard about playing video games?" But when you actually play video games and you see the amount of time and effort and skill that goes into playing playing video games on that level, like you understand that it is a sport. Like musical, like concerts, or I wouldn't consider it a sport, but it's definitely an entertainment, and it's a physical entertainment, But I don't think it's a different art. It's an art. It's a art entertainment, kind of like acting or even painting. Like it's one of the arts. It's not as, I can't say it's not as physically demanding because there are some musical aspects that are really physical. Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I can't say that it's not physically demanding because especially when it comes to singing and stage performance, it can be very physical. So I can't say that, but it's more of a, I don't know. They kind of bleed together, but it's more art than it is a sport. And you're not competing against somebody else, is what I mean. Like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, there's no there's no real like head-to-head competition, but I mean there is a competition. I mean you have battle of the bands and stuff like that, but it's not a competition in the same sense as what we consider sports to be, is a competition against others or against against yourself too, because I mean, there's some sports that are just solo sports where you're not even trying to beat anybody but yourself. But those are few and far between. So yeah, like to me, while it is physically demanding to be in music, Mina, I don't think that it's not a sport because you're not competing against somebody else. You're just you're doing it for entertainment, and it's just a physically demanding entertainment. My problem with poker being a sport is a lot of poker has to do with luck. But I mean, all sports do too. I don't know. I don't know if I can consider poker a sport, but maybe it is. I do think esports are a sport, and I think that people need to start realizing that esports are a viable sport. Just because you're not, hitting the gym every day, you're freaking like most of these professional esports players are practicing 8 to 12 hours a day, like just to be the best out there. So it's not as it's yeah, you need that dedication, and you need a paycheck. But that's kind of what I wanted to touch base on with when it comes to the women's sports, is that while the athletic ability is there, and while it can be entertaining, the draw to money that comes in is not there. And I think that this also leaks over to music, and it leaks over to movies and acting, because I feel like a lot of those pay differences have to do with talent as much as name. Like somebody like Ozzy Osbourne. All right, somebody like Ozzy Osbourne comes out there. Like I enjoy his music, but everybody knows who Ozzy Osbourne is. He's got that name draw. So people are going to go watch him because they've been listening to him for years. Even if you think that, and he's always going to make more money than, Hailstorm, another great, fantastic band that I love. But most of that money is coming from, notoriety and recognition more so than talent. I'm trying to think of some other great bands that I enjoy. The Horror Pops. I love the Horror Pops. I've watched them so many times. They perform in a scene that is not as... I don't think is as money driven. Because if you compare a lot of like punk and ska and rockabilly, psychobilly bands in the way that they price their tickets and their shows and stuff like that, compared to the likes of Taylor Swift or, more popular genres of music. And I don't think that it has anything to do with the popularity of their bands, because I think it's just that subculture itself is more of a, they don't want to be outrageous with their ticket prices kind of thing. I looked in Metallica concert tickets one year, and I was just, no, never going to Metallica. Even more so because I hate Lars. Yeah, they're just way too expensive. Way too expensive. I should not be paying, $150 for nosebleed section seats to go see Metallica. And you wonder why people were downloading your music on Napster, Lars. But I know like their cost also goes into the the venue and to all the other stuff. Look, Mina, I know, but like when I was looking at Metallica tickets, 15 years ago, $150 was a lot of money. Especially for little old me. So, it's that one I think is more of the culture around the music with the horror pops. But again, I love their band. I love their lead singer. I think she's fantastic. She plays stand up bass and has a great voice. She'll never make the kind of money that Tim Armstrong and Rancid will make. And they're in this kind of the same. I use them together because they're in kind of the same genre. They appeal to the same group of people. But Rancid has been around, for years, and they have the notoriety, and they're gonna draw the mainstream punk crowd into it. Oh, I enjoy talking about everything. So I would totally talk about the music industry forever. But because I have a broad enjoyment of so many different genres of music, I think also makes me want to look more into it and talk about it more. So, and because you still want my glass? I know, it's freaking awesome, isn't it? All right. I'm going to take a really quick break. Hopefully really quick break. We'll come back and we'll talk about... I'm going to touch on one more subject because it's only been an hour. Work on the Mavs. I'm going to touch on one more subject. It's going to be a little bit more touchy than I think even this subject is. Like I said, women's sports starts bringing in the money that freaking men's sports does. They need to be paid just as much. I understand why they're not paid at the same level. I do. Maybe on the national teams they should be paid at the same level. Maybe they should. It's a national team. That's a different. But I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere, guys. Enjoy the break music, and I'll see you guys in a little bit.
Inside the book that I wrote, all the words that we spoke, yet only with our eyes. Now is the time to choose somebody with wins and some lose. I can see through your disguise. Head down, hope for something better. Looking at the clouds, the cyber in the weather. You can't keep this up. The lines are just too much. Kick back, start another fire. Looking at the clouds, making shapes that you admire. And you can't stop it now, 'cause you don't know how. And you can't stop it now.
Oh my goodness. Rabbit. Hello, Rabbit. How are you doing, my man? You missed the meat of the stream already, bud. But don't worry. You'll be able to check it out on YouTube later. Later tonight, hopefully, I can get it downloaded to YouTube after the stream. The potatoes, I will give you the potatoes. So, for the first part of the program, we talked about why college coaches are paid so much, and it's because they make a lot of money for the schools. And that they're not paid off taxpayer money, they're paid off of the income from their sports. And then we talked a lot about the disparity between women's sports pay and men's sports pay, and that the fact that men's sports just make more money, maybe it's not, exactly fair. Maybe we need to support women's sports a little bit more. But the reasoning behind why women's sports don't make a lot of money compared to men's sports is because of the overall entertainment value of it, which I don't exactly agree with, but that's just because I actually like watching technical sports. I hope you can. I mean, they're usually like right below your chest area. I mean, Rabbit, like I said, the entertainment value of watching men's sports, there's more excitement in men's sports than there is in a lot of female sports. So the money that comes into those sports is a lot higher than female sports. And I likened it to the music and especially the music. I'll have to disagree with you. Women's curling reigns supreme, sir. Women's curling. If you ever watch women's curling, you'll understand what I mean. But we talked about that. And like I said, there's some things maybe on the national level, maybe like the women's national team for soccer should get paid as much as the men's national team. But I mean, again, where are you getting this money from? That's the problem. That's always going to be the problem when it comes to entertainment, is that the fact that money coming in. Oh yeah! Thank you for the sparks. The money coming in needs to overwhelm the amount of money going out, kind of thing. That's just good business practices. That's just how you run a business. If you're running in the red all the time, you're not going to be able to run the business unless you're the government. I'm looking at you, Amtrak. Looking at you, Amtrak.
Oh my God!
Thank you for the sparks. Now, I want to touch on something, and I know this possibly could get me in a lot of trouble. And could lose me some people that that I talk to. We're going to talk, and I'm asking everybody in chat to be extremely respectful on this topic, because it is a very controversial topic, I think. But it has to do with transgender athletes in sports. I am an accepting person. I accept everybody for who they are. I don't care how they want to live their life, as long as it's not hurting anybody else. I've gone over this time and time again on all my other streams. I'm a very, very big proponent of, as long as you're not harming somebody else, I don't care what you do. I don't care what you do in life. I don't care what you do in private. I don't care. Like, that's your own damn business. I don't care. But here, this has been a topic over the past month that I've seen floating around Twitter, and I've tried to figure out where I stand on this issue, because as we've already covered today, especially in the women's sports aspect of it, there isn't as much money going around in women's sports as there are in other sports. In men's sports especially, is what I mean. So, when it comes to transgender athletes who were born male, who have transitioned to female, it becomes a very... Yeah. It's been going on longer than that. Well, yeah, I mean it has been going on longer than that. And roller derby is an interesting area, Icy Rain. But I mean it's become very prevalent over the past couple months with a transgender weightlifter. Yeah, right, they do. And Icy, I would love to catch a roller derby match with you. If you're we if we're ever in the same town, we need to go watch some roller derby. I freaking love watching roller derby. But and then you could teach me more about it because I know nothing about it other than they run around in a circle over and over and over again and beat the shit out of each other. And me being a person who enjoys those kind of sports, I like watching it even if I don't understand what the hell's going on. But when it became really prominent, especially on Twitter recently, because of the female or the transgender weightlifter who broke like 4 world records in the female aspect of it, or in the female category, and there was a huge outrage from both sides, honestly, and I think it's something we are going to have to eventually address. Face it. We're going to have to address it. There's gonna have to be rules made, and there's going to have to be we're gonna have to do something about it. I'm not saying that we should penalize anybody for what they're born as or anything like that. It's just more of it's a fairness aspect of it. No, they don't. No, and I know they did, Rabbit, and I kind of have a problem. I think you're going to have to, Icy. I think they're going to have to base it off of your original chromosomes, because while I have like I said, while I have no issue with transgender individuals, because I accept people for who they are. There are some basic differences when it comes to certain athletic competitions. Especially when it comes to something that is more strength based. Yeah, I mean it. Yeah, you don't. And a lot of it is going to come down to what is going to be the most fair. Do we as a society make a third sport group? Do we have a male, a female, and a transgender sport group? And to me, that's the smartest and easiest way to go about it. That way you don't have those who feel like they're being slighted because this person has a physical advantage over them based on how they were born. And I agree, Rabbit. That'd be the only way to circumvent all the bullshit. It would be. Because while I'll put it this way. So this year there was a female kicker who was trying out for a professional NFL team. And if she had been able to beat out the male kicker that was on that team, she would have had the spot on the team. The difference is that kicking is a lot more about technique and uses very like the men and women aren't as different in that aspect of it as they are in other places. I can confidently say there's not a woman in the world who can go on and compete with a professional NFL player. 99% of all men can't compete with a professional NFL player. So it's not about sex when it comes to this. It's not about gender when it comes to this. It's just about these are the top athletes in the entire sport competing for a limited amount of spots to make that kind of money. I was looking at some statistics for my brother was playing football in high school, and I had always told him when he was playing, I wanted him to continue playing football until he got to college to see if he could get a scholarship to college, but I knew he would never be good enough to play on the professional level. He doesn't have the body size, he doesn't have the physical ability. My little brother is 18 years old now. But I always supported him playing football because I love football. My whole entire family loves football. He quit football his senior year because he wanted to focus more on choir. We give him a hard time about it. But it's more of because he wants to go into the Air Force. I just wanted him to continue staying athletically challenged and staying in a sense of trying to continue keeping his weight down and keeping his body strength up. And it does. It opens a lot of doors academically. But I always told him there was no way he was going to make it on the professional level because those are top tier guys. Those are guys that are athletically gifted, A, or B, do nothing but work to get to there. And he didn't have that same drive to continuously overcome his physical inability with just sheer willpower. And neither did I. That's why I'm not a professional football player, even though I love the sport so much. I don't have the physical ability or the talent or the gifts to be able to make it on that level. I didn't even have it to be in college football. So there's a very small group of individuals that make it to the professional level in any sport, whether it's football, basketball, soccer, baseball. Baseball's a little bit larger because you have minor leagues and there's a whole bunch more players. But from the majority of the top tier professional athletes, it's 1% of 1% of the freaking entire population can make it there. So there's not a female in the entire world that could compete with a professional football player. There's not I don't believe there's a female in the world that could compete professionally in a sport like basketball or baseball either, or even hockey. Tennis is a little bit different. We've all seen Billie Jean King win tennis. The female tennis athletes are just as good as a lot of the male athletes out there. Tennis is just one of those sports that's a little bit of a great equalizer. But a lot of that has to do with technique. Something like weightlifting. Weightlifting is forever going to be a male-dominated sport if you merge everything together. It's just going to be. And a lot of that has to do with our biological makeup. Again, this is nothing against transgender people. This is nothing against women. This is just stating what I believe to be our facts, which is that on that level, in these certain aspects, you can't have a equal playing field for the sexes. And I think that we need to make make each sport 3 categories, because there are a lot of transgender individuals that want to compete athletically. And a lot of the stuff I've seen from one side was that she wouldn't be part of the team even if she did make the team, assuming she was just a straight female. She'd have to have her own changing room, missing all the team building and bonding, coach prep. Yeah, I can see that, but I think that if you are athletically gifted enough to make it worth, because professional sports teams are all about business. They make most of their decisions based off of business, and in sports, the business is winning. And if one person, no matter their sex, their gender, their, overall being, conflicts with the rest of your team, except for character. I know teams will drop people for character reasons, but that has to do more of the bad PR than it does their actual beliefs on the character. most teams would rather have a winning team, and if that one person could make the difference between winning and losing, they'll overlook everything and make special exceptions. Oh no, I like again, Rabbit. That's one of the things that you'd have to find out. And I don't think that we will have until you have somebody try to break that barrier. Until you do have somebody try to really like want to be that first person, until we have that person that wants to be that first female NFL player, we're not going to see like whether that person individual, because that's more of a mentality. I think that a lot of people, and especially in professional sports, they thrive off of the chip off on their shoulder. I was just sorry. I for some reason I was thinking of G.I. Jane the movie, and that kind of aspect of it. If there, a lot of them do. One of my favorite players right now in the NFL of all time, J.J. Watt. A lot of his career, he has played with a chip on his shoulder. He was he didn't make Wisconsin. He didn't get called up to Wisconsin when he left high school. And then he walked on to Wisconsin and became their top defensive player. When he was drafted by the Texans, fans booed him. Literally, fans booed him. Mind you, years later, those same fans are freaking worshiping the ground he walks on. But, no, Rabbit, I think a lot of our athletic ability is based off genetics. And I think a lot of it has to do with, I mean, you look at professional sports, especially like professional football. There are a lot of people in professional football right now that are related to somebody else in the sport at this moment, or they're related to somebody that has came in the past. The Khalil brothers, their father played. The Long brothers, their father played. Clay Matthews, his father played. J.J. Watt and his two brothers play in the NFL. Like, genetics has a lot to do with athletic ability. It really does. So, and I don't know. I don't know if it's more of the same thing as you mean, as you're saying, as white males in professional sports. It's more of the talent pool has gotten extremely large and gotten more large, so more people are able to make it in. And especially with breaking of the color barriers when it came to Jackie Robinson in baseball, and the fact that basketball transitioned from, a bunch of white Jewish guys playing basketball to a bunch of black guys, playing basketball. Like it's more of the talent pool is now a lot larger than it's ever been. So they can get the talent from everybody and from worldwide. You have Hakeem Olajuwon, one of my favorite basketball players of all time. He came from, he came from Africa. They literally the University of Houston went over there and recruited him to play basketball because he was so damn tall. He came, learned how to play, became one of the best centers to ever play the game. So we've gone to a point in sports in general. I don't know if that's exactly true. I think that there's definitely some aspects of our heritage makeup that make us better at certain aspects than others. Because of the overall evolution of mankind in those areas of the world, it's just become a focal point for just evolution wise. But I don't think it's so much as because you look at it this way. In marathon running, and I like to use marathon running because I think that long distance running is one of the hardest things, and it really pushes the human body to its extremes. You look at who has consistently won marathon running over the past 4, 5, 6 Olympics, and it's been a Kenyan, and I don't think that has little to do with their ethnic background as much as it does that the place that they live, because Kenya is mountainous and because they can train in the mountains all the time. And I brought this up earlier. Because they train in the mountains and they train to run in the mountains, it gives them an advantage to run against the rest of the world in what's a passers. It gives them an advantage to run against the rest of the world at sea level. That's why a lot of Americans and a lot of other people in the world will travel to Flagstaff, Arizona, which is a place I lived. And I know this for a fact because I was living there and I got to meet a bunch of Olympic athletes there. We're talking about sports in a whole and how it's going to have to expand, and as well as Albuquerque. They go there to train because it's a mile above sea level, and that's why there is that one crazy white guy that's up there in the top 3 on the marathon in the Olympics. But I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand, formal. Yeah, I mean it does. I mean, like I said, that has more to do with environmental, though. I don't know if it's, and I think that if I mean, like, okay, me being a Hispanic individual, I'm prone to being overweight. We're prone to diabetes. We're prone to heart disease. Yes, Hazardous. Yeah, it's still a debate, though, formal. Like it's still a debate. There's still that huge nurture over nature debate. Like how much of it is your natural genetics and how much of it is, your how you were raised or how you grew up, kind of thing. So I don't know. Like, yeah, your culture. I don't. There's obviously some aspects to it. I mean, Hispanic individuals didn't live off of high fat, foods for generations upon generations upon generations, and then the Europeans came over and introduced these high fatty foods, and of course it caused obesity in most Native Americans in general. It caused a high amount of diabetes with a high with all the sugars being introduced and stuff like that. That's mostly nature, and I understand that part of it, but a lot of it also is because while I was raised to be athletic, or not athletic, but participate in sports and stuff like that, my personal choices have made it to where I've become more overweight than I probably should be. So that's more of a cultural aspect of it. But when it comes to but yeah, I mean, yeah. So we definitely are all. But when we talk, so when it comes to trying to get back on topic, when it comes to transgenders in sports, I think it's definitely it would be a hardship more on female sports, which are already have a hardship on themselves because they are not making the money that male sports are, which means that their athletes are not being paid as much as male athletes are, and to be to lose a spot in their preferred sport because a transgender individual is able to outdo them. I believe that that's unfair, and I think that's why we need to make a third group of sports. We need to make the trans inclusive sport group where it's not, they're not competing against females, but they're not competing against males who are, going to be at a huge advantage in certain aspects of athletics. and that does, and Rabbit, I can see. Isn't that a little? I understand what you're trying to say, Hassers. It is a little bit discriminatory, but I mean, it's like I was saying earlier. They're the most the NFL, the MLB, the MLS. If a female came to them that was competing on the same level as most of the males, they wouldn't shy. Most of them now wouldn't shy away from giving that person a chance because they're more about the money than they are about, preserving the culture of the sport. We were talking about the female kicker who got a tryout this year in the NFL, and that if she would have won the job, beating out the male counterpart to her, that I think the NFL team that had her would A, highlight it, B, they wouldn't care that she's a female because they're going to make money off of it. As long as she gives them a chance to win. And Rabbit brought up the discussion that, she wouldn't be in the same locker room. She wouldn't have the same ability to build camaraderie with the team, and that it could possibly affect her gameplay because of the amount of mental stress on kickers in the sport. And that we were talking about that. I was also discussing that I think it's a hard thing that transgender people in sports is going to be a hard thing for us to figure out how to do fairly for everybody. But I honestly feel like the easiest and most fair way is to have the 3 different sports groups. It's not perfect, and I'm not saying it's perfect, but I feel like that's the most fair for everybody on all sides. I mean, do we force them to play with their chromosome buildup? Do we force them to play with the sex that they were born with, or do we, force the females athletes who, are the top of their essential sport, compete against somebody who has an advantage to them based off their genetic makeup? I mean, it's a hard discussion to have, Hazardous. I'm not saying that I have all the answers. I'm not saying that I'm, picking one side over the other. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation. Universal Olympics, I think if you're going to lump them all together, I think that it's going to give a more advantage to the males. Fair for everyone needs to come off the table. Life isn't fair. I agree that life isn't fair. Rabbit, I understand that, but when it comes to sports is a little bit different, I think, because I think fairness is part of the essence of sports. I mean, that's the reason why so many people are still against, performance enhancing drugs. It's the reason why, the likes of Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa are never going to see the Hall of Fame. Yeah, and I agree with that too. Putting a man who is trained in the sport. I'm not saying putting a man who's untrained in the sport. I'm saying a man who is trained in the sport against a woman trained in the same sport. It's not fair. Oh, I see. I don't disagree with you. Look, okay, here, on the aspect of fairness, I've been an Astros fan for the entirety of my life. They've been good in the past, then they got really bad, and now they're good again. Since they've won their World Series, there's a pitcher for the Cleveland Indians who continuously attacks the Astros for cheating every freaking chance he gets. Why? Because he's on the Cleveland Indians, and that's his only reason for them being good. It has nothing to do with the fact that the Astros have a really good training and they have really good guys on their team. But no, Hashers, if we want to do it that way, if you want to make a male and a female for the people that don't want to compete against the opposite sex, a male and a female area and then a universal area, then okay. I mean, but then you're just going to spread more. The biggest problem with that is you're going to spread more money from a already finite amount of money even thinner than it already is. That's this is the problem I have with it, and this is why I started with my it would be the price of equality. Is that people are getting paid less, and then only the superior athletes will be paid the most amount of money. And that's why I started. If you were here earlier before my break, we talked about the fact that women athletes don't make as much as male athletes, and a lot of that has to do with the money that's coming into their sport than that what's going. Then it's like that a lot of people see it as, oh, there's this giant pool of money that they're just spreading out unevenly, and it's not. It's the people that are paying to watch, and the people that are paying to buy merchandise, and the people that are paying to buy beer and sodas at the the fans just want to see massacres in sports and money in sports. That what happens to athletes that don't want to pursue that, and that's what I have a problem with that too. Well, there you also will start to get the outcries of so and so doesn't want to fight this person because they're a man, or so forth, negatively impacting someone that just wanted to have a fair shot. And I mean, you're already seeing that though, Formal. What's her face? The freaking MMA fighter. Who's now in WWE. What's her name? Somebody tell me. Ronda Rousey. Yeah. Ronda Rousey. She had the chance to fight a transgender individual while she was in the MMA, and she didn't want to. And she said that her reasoning was she would be at a disadvantage. She didn't want to get her skull bashed in. That fighter, the transgender fighter, eventually beat the crap out of somebody and pounded somebody's face in, and it kind of just was like, that's why she didn't want to do it. Why force her to go and fight somebody who she knows she's already at a huge disadvantage of? No, and I agree. And while I'm not a big fan of Ronda, I think she's a big freaking pain in a lot of people's asses. I do agree with that because a lot of people are using it to shame her now. They're saying, oh, she's transphobic, and no, she's just looking out for her livelihood. It would be the same thing as all right, so Mike Tyson in the top of his career. Mike Tyson in the top of his career was one of the best boxers in the entire freaking world. And if he came up and was like, I just want to find a fluff match, before I go and take on Lennox Lewis again, let me go and, talk to this guy. And this small no-name boxer is like, nah, bro, I'm not going to fight you because I'm not on your level. Like, they wouldn't bash that guy for saying no. They wouldn't. No, yeah. Yeah, like, she literally had her face broken. But no, yeah, so like if Mike Tyson came up to some no-name boxer and was like, hey, let's have this match, go 8 rounds instead of the full 14, or, we're just going to have a fight. If I'm that small no-name boxer, I'm not going against Mike Tyson. That dude kills people in the ring.
Your booty is mine.
Salmon, thank you for the host. Your booty is mine. But nobody would dog this guy for not taking that fight, because you could look at the talent levels and be like, no, that's just not fair. I'd be on his side too. Don't take the fight. But because now you're trying to integrate everybody with everybody, it's kind of like, you're going to make that person a bad guy because they say no to a fight because that person is transgender, and that's not fair to that person, even if that person is extremely acceptive of transgender individuals. Thank you, Salmon, for the sticker. So even if that person is extreme, like if I, because I feel like I'm very accepting of transgender individuals, that I don't hold their life against them. I wouldn't want to fight. I wouldn't, like, if I was if I was in the MMA, if I was into MMA, I wouldn't want to fight a transgender male, because I don't think it would be fair to that person. I just don't. Maybe I'm going about this the wrong way. Maybe we're all going about this the wrong way. Maybe we should just get rid of sports altogether, even though, we as humans enjoy entertainment through physical competitions. We just do. We've always had. And we've had some sort of games for most of our, civilized beings. Ever since cities started becoming cities, it's just entertainment is through physical competitions. Like I said, I've said in the past, you bring back naked men wrestling. Go back to the original Greco-Roman wrestling. And I agree, Hasris. It is a shame that it has to be all or nothing. I don't know if I'm hoping that cooler minds prevail when it comes to it, because I enjoy watching sports, and I've always been a sports fan, and I watch sports of all different kinds. And I know not everybody in here is a sports fan, but it's fine. Like this is I'm using sports as a more of a talking point. Yeah. Sports ball. The more exceptions you make, the more you'll have to you'll have to generate in the future. And sometimes I'm like I said, I'm not the breaking of the color barrier in baseball was one of the best things to happen. It was. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had Hank Aaron, and I think Hank Aaron is the best hitter of all time. Could this be a societal problem that we're so entitled that we expect to be catered to? It could be. I think it could be a societal problem. Maybe it is a societal problem that we feel like everybody should be catered to. Me personally, I don't think everybody should be catered to, but that's just me. But maybe it is more of a societal problem. Maybe in the next 20 years, the next generation of individuals are not as focused on, being catered to. No, and that's my problem as well. I see is like, where's the right level though? Like trying to find the right level. And again, like I said, the breaking of the color barrier in baseball was the best thing to happen to sports. Jesse Owens going over to Germany during World War II and winning in Germany during the Olympics is another great thing for sports. It's... And Formal, I understand what you mean about the everybody needs a ridiculous stadium. It's one of the reasons why Houston had lost a professional team for a while, actually, because taxpayers funding a professional sports stadium is hard to pass, through taxpayers. Yeah, but Rabbit, the problem is that the Negro League in baseball was so underfunded on purpose. And I think that I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't know how to address this issue without coming off as a dick to one side or the other. No, and I agree. It was more of a societal thing, though, at the time. It's just because... It's because of the segregation, because of the overt racism that was happening during that era of the Negro League, and that includes the Negro Basketball League, was because of that racism during that time, they weren't going to get a lot of the money that the professional sports were getting, because the amount of money out there in the African American, in the black communities, wasn't there to support those. And I think that's why, again, why Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier, whether it was because, and maybe that's what it takes. Maybe it takes that one person to recognize that their drive to win exceeds the prejudice, to change a sport indefinitely. And that too, Hazardous. There wasn't a lot. There wasn't. Yeah, back then. No, Rabbit. He's talking about back then. Back then, there wasn't a lot of black supporting sponsors. I mean, like, you think about it. Like, these guys that played in the Negro Basketball League and the Negro Baseball League, like, they were riding around in a bus that's falling apart, or they were, paying their own way to get to games and stuff like that. Like, they weren't making any money. They were doing it for the love of the game. They got spit on. Oh, Jackie got freaking death threats. Hank Aaron, when he was about to break Babe Ruth's record, got death threats too. Like, this is... I'm happy with the progress that we've made as a society to make it more inclusive, but I'm happy with the way that we have evolved as a society, especially here in the United States over the past 60, 70 years, and especially when it comes to sports. And there's still, I mean, not saying that it's not there, because there still is that racism. There's still that thought process out there that, black quarterbacks are not as smart. People still think this, and it's stupid, and we all know it's wrong. I mean, freaking Warren Moon was 30 years ago. We've had, I was going to say Michael Vick, but that guy freaking also did dogfighting. So, I mean, he's not really, he's not the greatest example. Yeah, bad example. But, like, look, there's plenty there. Look at Russell Wilson. Look at, we live in a generation where we never... Metro? Metro Hotness, thank you for the gift subscription. You are amazing, and I love you. And I'm sure this is going to be a topic that we continue to talk about, maybe for the next 15, 20, 30 years, until we get a definitive, thought on how to go about it. It's something that we're going to have to deal with. And like Icy Rain said, it's something that has been a talking point for a while too, especially in something like roller derby, where roller derby is not in the forefront of sports, but it's still a sport that's highly entertaining, that brings money in. I think it'll just get more and more in our face, but I think that we have to... Metro! Metro Hotness, thank you for another gift subscription. You are amazing. And Metro, thank you for your continued support of the Kraken and its crew. You're amazing, and I love you. Ooh, you're making me live. Whatever this world can give to me, so you're all I see. Ooh, you're making me live now, honey. Ooh, you're making me live. Thank you so much, Metro. How have you been, buddy? How's your day going? Oh, God. How are you doing? Dude, it's been a minute since you've hung out. But I thank you for your support all these months. We're almost on 2 years of being partnered on Mixer. Do you understand that? And Metro is the one that had brought me originally over to Mixer. And you all can blame him for PieRat TV. That's all I'm gonna say. Ugh. Good, just enjoying Friday night. That's good. No, I think we will close it down now, right there, for PieRat TV. I'm going to start. I'm going to end my stream and I'm going to restart it again. I don't know what I want to play. I want to play some Dauntless. Dauntless. Yeah, that's what I figured. But I thank you guys for hanging out, talking about this. I know it's been kind of all over the place. We talked about, college sports and the way that the money is done there. We talked about women's sports and why they're not making as much money as women athletes, and maybe that some aspects they probably do need to make some more money. And we talked about transgenders in sports and how we are going to need to approach this in the future, whether we choose to go one way or another, or just cancel all sports together. And I thank everybody for being extremely respectful. And I love all of you guys. This will be on YouTube later tonight. So if you missed anything, if you want to go back and catch anything, definitely go check out the YouTube page, or the YouTube channel, where all my PieRat TV episodes are on there. What, Mina? Why am I a jerk? But I thank you guys for hanging out here. And doing this, and helping me do this every week. Y'all have been extremely respectful, and I enjoyed it, and I do. That's why I enjoy y'all as part of my community to do this. But I'm going to end right there. I will be right back in about 10 minutes. The stream will be back up, but all right. Tell Jess I love her. You were amazing, and I miss you. So, I will see you guys in a little bit. Don't go anywhere. Oh, hey. Don't go anywhere. I'll see you guys in a little bit.
Ho, yo,